Welcome to the Old Coins Explorer. Imagine opening your pocket and discovering a single ordinary-looking quarter that could secretly rewrite your destiny. These Washington quarter stories promise hidden millions, overnight fortune, and life-changing power locked inside forgotten coins. Are they legends, exaggerations, or misunderstood history? Before you spend, trade, or ignore that coin, listen carefully. Because some coins teach truth, some sell dreams, and some reveal how easily hope can outweigh reality in the end of the day. First up, the 1967 Washington quarter carries a strange kind of mystery, not because it openly screams wealth, but because it quietly sits at the crossroads of American monetary history. Many people hear wild claims about a single quarter turning someone into a billionaire overnight, and while those stories spread fast, the real story of the 1967 quarter is far more fascinating, layered, and valuable in a different way. This coin was born during a time when the United States was fighting inflation, silver hoarding, and public panic over disappearing precious metal coins. That pressure changed everything about how quarters were made, collected, and understood, and the 1967 issue became a symbol of that transformation rather than a lottery ticket. To understand the value of a 1967 Washington quarter, you must first understand what was happening before it existed. For decades, quarters were struck in 90% silver, giving them intrinsic metal value beyond their face value. When silver prices began rising sharply in the early 1960s, people started pulling silver coins out of circulation, saving them, melting them, and treating pocket change like buried treasure. The U.S. government responded by removing silver from circulating coinage, and by 1965, quarters were no longer made of precious metal. The 1967 quarter belongs fully to this new era, made of copper and nickel, and that single fact alone defines its destiny. Unlike older Washington quarters, the 1967 coin was never meant to be rare. Millions upon millions were struck, and they were produced without mint marks to prevent people from hoarding specific issues. This decision flattened the sense of competition among collectors at the time, but it also created a unique historical footprint. Every 1967 quarter represents a government trying to stabilize a nation's economy, not impress collectors. That makes the coin historically important. But history does not automatically translate into million-dollar value, no matter how dramatic the stories online may sound. Now here's where reality sharply separates from myth. There's no regular 1967 Washington quarter that is worth millions of dollars, not in circulated condition, not in mint condition, not sitting in a drawer, and not hiding in a jar of old coins. Claims that such a coin can instantly make someone unimaginably wealthy are exaggerated to the point of fantasy. Coins become million-dollar objects only when extreme rarity, precious metal content, historical significance, and collector demand collide perfectly. The 1967 quarter simply does not meet those conditions in its normal form. That does not mean the coin is worthless, and this is where many people misunderstand value. A standard 1967 quarter in circulated condition is worth close to face value, while an uncirculated example could be worth more, especially if it shows sharp details, original luster, and no damage. Exceptional examples preserved perfectly since the year of issue can command higher prices among collectors. But even then, we are talking about tens of dollars or possibly more in rare cases, not millions. The market rewards condition, not rumors. There is also confusion around errors, which fuels many viral stories. Yes, rare mint errors can dramatically increase a coin's value, but those errors must be genuine, dramatic, and verified by professional grading services. A slight off-center strike, weak detail, or damage caused after leaving the mint does not create fortune. True errors are rare, unmistakable, and documented. Even then, a 1967 quarter with an authentic error may be worth hundreds or thousands, depending on the type, not overnight billionaire money. The emotional pull of these stories comes from hope. People want to believe that something small and ordinary can secretly hold life-changing power. A quarter feels approachable, democratic, almost magical, and that makes it a perfect subject for exaggerated claims. But the real treasure of the 1967 Washington quarter lies in its role as a witness to economic change. It marks the end of silver in everyday American pocket change and the beginning of modern coinage as we know it today. Collectors who truly appreciate the 1967 quarter do so for its crisp design, its connection to George Washington's enduring image, and its place in a transitional era. The eagle on the reverse, strong and balanced, reflects an older design philosophy that would later disappear. Holding this coin is like holding a moment when America quietly changed how it viewed money itself. That kind of value doesn't shout. It whispers to those who listen closely. Another important truth is that professional coin markets are built on trust, grading, and documentation. No serious dealer or collector believes in instant riches coins without proof. If a 1967 quarter truly had the power to make someone unimaginably wealthy, it would already be documented, auctioned, and known throughout the numismatic world. The absence of such evidence is not a conspiracy. It is clarity. What often happens instead is that people damage coins trying to make them rare. Polishing, scratching, or altering a coin destroys value rather than creating it. A genuine collector understands preservation, not manipulation. The most valuable coins are the ones left untouched, respected, and authenticated. The 1967 quarter teaches this lesson perfectly because it rewards knowledge over hype. When you strip away the exaggeration, the 1967 Washington quarter becomes something more honest and more meaningful. It becomes a learning coin, a gateway into understanding U.S. monetary policy, metal composition changes, and the psychology of collecting. For beginners, it is a perfect example of why research matters more than rumors and why patience beats fantasy every time. The idea that a single coin can change your fortune overnight is powerful, but real wealth in coin collecting comes from long-term understanding, careful buying, and respect for history. Many serious collectors build impressive collections not by chasing viral myths, but by studying patterns, mintages, conditions, and market demand over decades. The 1967 quarter fits into that world as a chapter, not a jackpot. In the end, the 1967 Washington quarter does not hold unimaginable wealth in monetary terms, but it does hold a valuable lesson. It shows how easily stories can grow louder than facts and how history can be twisted into headlines. If you own one, keep it as a piece of American history, not as a lottery ticket. True power comes from knowing what you hold, not from believing what sounds exciting. And that is the real story behind a 1967 Washington quarter, not a promise of instant billions, but a reminder that knowledge is the rarest currency of all. Second up, the 1987 Washington quarter is one of those coins that feels ordinary at first glance, yet sits quietly inside a powerful chapter of American coin history. Many people online claim that this single quarter could be worth millions of dollars and turn an average person into a billionaire overnight. But the real story behind a 1987 quarter is far deeper and more interesting than loud promises. This coin belongs to an era when American money was no longer about precious metal, but about trust, circulation, and stability. Its value does not come from magic or mystery, but from understanding what it represents and what it does not. By 1987, the United States had already moved far away from silver coinage. The Washington quarter was now made using a copper core layered with nickel, designed to last long in circulation rather than store metal wealth. These coins were produced in very large numbers because the country needed reliable everyday money. That alone tells us something important. The 1987 quarter was not created to be rare, exclusive, or hidden from the public. It was designed to be spent, used, and passed from hand to hand without hesitation. Still, the year 1987 carries weight for collectors because it reflects a mature stage of modern U.S. coinage. The design had remained unchanged for decades, which gave it familiarity and authority. George Washington's portrait on the front was no longer just a design. It was a symbol of continuity. Millions of people handled this coin without thinking twice, and that everyday nature is exactly why so many myths later grew around it. When something feels too common, people start searching for secret value inside it. Here's the truth that many channels avoid saying clearly. There is no normal 1987 Washington quarter that is worth millions of dollars. Not one pulled from circulation, not one kept in a drawer, and not one sitting in a jar of old coins. Stories claiming unimaginable wealth from this coin are exaggerations built on hope rather than fact. Coin values rise because of rarity, demand, condition, and historical importance. And the 1987 quarter in its standard form, simply does not meet the requirements for million-dollar status. However, that does not mean the 1987 quarter has no value beyond face value. Coins exist on a spectrum, and condition plays a powerful role. A heavily worn 1987 quarter is worth only what it can buy, but a perfectly preserved example, one that never entered circulation and still carries its original mint luster, becomes something else entirely. Collectors appreciate sharp details, clean surfaces, and untouched edges, and those qualities can increase value significantly within realistic limits. Much of the confusion around the 1987 quarter comes from misunderstandings about minting errors. Error coins are real and they can be valuable, but they are also extremely specific. A true error is not damage, scratches, or discoloration. It is a mistake that occurred during the minting process itself. Even when genuine, most errors raise a coin's value modestly or moderately, not into fantasy territory. The idea that every unusual quarter is a fortune waiting to be claimed is simply not how numismatics works. The emotional power of these myths cannot be ignored. People want to believe that wealth can hide in plain sight, especially in something as small as a quarter. It feels poetic, almost cinematic, that a single coin could change a life overnight. That feeling is what fuels viral stories, dramatic thumbnails, and exaggerated titles. But real collectors know that true value is slow, patient, and grounded in knowledge, not shock. Historically, the 1987 Washington quarter represents stability rather than scarcity. It comes from a time when the U.S. economy was focused on consistency, and its coins reflect that goal. There were no precious metals involved, no experimental designs, and no limited secret releases. This makes the coin an excellent teaching tool for understanding how modern money works, even if it disappoints those hoping for instant riches. Another important aspect many overlook is grading. In the coin world, professional grading is everything. Without authentication and grading, claims mean nothing. If a 1987 quarter were truly capable of reaching extraordinary prices, it would already be certified, auctioned, and documented publicly. The absence of such records is not coincidence. It is evidence. Ironically, chasing myths often causes people to destroy real value. Cleaning, polishing, or altering a coin in hopes of making it special almost always reduces its worth. Collectors value originality above all else. A natural, untouched 1987 quarter in excellent condition will always be more desirable than one that has been modified by hopeful hands. What makes the 1987 quarter meaningful is not money, but context. It marks a point in time when American coinage was fully modern, fully industrial, and fully detached from precious metal dependency. It tells a story of trust in currency itself, not in what it is made of. That lesson is subtle but powerful. For new collectors, this coin teaches discipline. It shows why research matters, why hype is dangerous, and why patience wins. Many serious collectors build valuable collections over years, not by chasing viral legends, but by understanding history, condition, and demand. The 1987 Washington quarter fits into that journey as a foundation, not a shortcut. The promise of overnight fortune is tempting, but real wealth in collecting comes from knowledge and respect for history. Coins reward those who study them, not those who rush them. The 1987 quarter reminds us that value is not always loud, shiny, or exaggerated. Sometimes it is quiet, honest, and educational. In the end, the 1987 Washington quarter does not have the power to make someone a billionaire overnight, but it does have the power to teach a lasting truth. Not every treasure is measured in millions of dollars. Some are measured in understanding, clarity, and freedom from illusion. And in a world full of noise, that kind of value is rare indeed. Third up, the 1983 Washington quarter sits at a strange intersection between myth and reality, and that is exactly why so many dramatic stories surround it today. People hear whispers about unimaginable wealth, million-dollar values, and life-changing fortune hidden inside an ordinary-looking coin, and the idea spreads fast because it feels hopeful. But the real story of the 1983 quarter is not about magic or overnight billionaire dreams. It is about survival, neglect, and how scarcity can be created not by intention, but by circumstance. In 1983, the United States Mint was going through an unusual period. Unlike many other years, no official proof sets were issued for collectors. This single decision quietly changed the future of the 1983 Washington Quarter. Collectors who usually relied on mint sets to preserve perfect examples suddenly had to pull coins directly from circulation. That meant most 1983 quarters were used immediately, scratched, worn, and damaged through everyday handling, leaving far fewer high-quality examples behind. This is where the story becomes interesting. While millions of 1983 quarters were minted, very few survived in pristine condition. Coins from this year were not treated as collectible items at the time. They were spent, dropped, stacked, and forgotten. As years passed, collectors realized that finding a truly flawless 1983 Washington quarter was far more difficult than expected. Scarcity was not created by low mintage, but by heavy use and lack of preservation. Many people misunderstand the scarcity and stretch it into fantasy. You will often hear claims that a 1983 quarter can be worth millions of dollars and instantly change someone's fortune. The truth is more grounded. There is no standard 1983 Washington quarter that is worth millions simply for existing. Stories suggesting guaranteed overnight wealth are exaggerations designed to attract attention, not reflect the real coin market. However, dismissing the 1983 quarter as ordinary would also be a mistake. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. A heavily worn 1983 quarter is worth only its face value, but a coin that escaped circulation entirely, with sharp details, untouched surfaces, and original mint shine, becomes something genuinely desirable. These high-grade examples are rare because the system failed to protect them when they were new. This rarity has created strong demand among collectors who understand the year's significance. When a 1983 quarter appears in exceptional condition, it draws attention not because of myths, but because of documented difficulty. That difficulty gives the coin real, measurable value within the collector market. Still, even at its highest legitimate levels, this value remains grounded in thousands, not millions. Error coins add another layer to the legend. True mint errors can raise value, but they must be real, dramatic, and professionally verified. Most marks people believe are errors are actually damage from circulation or misuse. A genuine error from 1983 can be valuable, but it does not automatically unlock unimaginable wealth. The coin world rewards proof, not hope. What fuels extreme stories is emotion. People want to believe that something small and overlooked can hold secret power. The idea that a forgotten quarter could transform a life overnight feels like destiny. That emotional pull is powerful, especially in uncertain times. But emotion does not set prices in serious collecting. Knowledge does. Historically, the 1983 Washington quarter represents a moment when the system failed collectors unintentionally. No proof sets, heavy circulation, and widespread neglect combine to create a year that is difficult to complete in high grade. That alone gives a coin importance. It teaches how policy decisions can affect value decades later without anyone realizing at the time. Another critical truth is that professional grading defines legitimacy. Without authentication, claims mean nothing. If a 1983 quarter truly had the power to create billionaires overnight, such coins would already dominate major auctions and historical records. The absence of such events is not a mystery. It is evidence. Many people unknowingly destroy value by trying to improve their coins. Cleaning, polishing, or altering a 1983 quarter removes originality, which collectors value above all else. A naturally preserved coin, even with slight age, will always outperform a modified one. The market respects patience and restraint. The real power of the 1983 Washington quarter lies in education. It teaches collectors why rarity is not always about numbers, why condition matters more than age, and why myths should always be questioned. It is a coin that rewards understanding rather than blind belief. For serious collectors, the 1983 quarter is a challenge coin. Finding one in exceptional condition requires effort, timing, and sometimes luck. That challenge gives it respect within the numismatic community. But respect does not mean fantasy prices. It means realistic appreciation driven by demand and difficulty. In the end, the 1983 Washington quarter does not carry unimaginable wealth in the way rumors claim, but it does carry a powerful lesson. Not every treasure makes you rich overnight. Some make you wiser, sharper, and harder to deceive. And in a world full of exaggerated promises, that kind of value quietly stands the test of time. Fourth up, the 1984 Washington quarter is one of those coins that quietly slipped into circulation without drama, yet decades later became the center of bold claims, shocking thumbnails, and viral stories about hidden millions. At first glance, it looks no different from countless other quarters, and that normal appearance is exactly what feeds the myth. People love the idea that unimaginable wealth can hide inside something ordinary, something they may already own. The 1984 quarter became a perfect candidate for these stories, not because it was created to be rare, but because time slowly changed how it was seen. By 1984, American coinage had fully settled into the modern era. Silver was long gone from quarters, replaced by a copper core layered with nickel, designed for durability rather than intrinsic metal value. The Washington quarter design had become deeply familiar, almost invisible in daily life. These coins were produced in large numbers to meet everyday demand, and no one at the time thought of them as future treasures. They were money meant to move, not objects meant to be saved. That everyday use is critical to understanding the 1984 quarter story. Coins from this year were heavily circulated, tossed into cash registers, dropped into vending machines, and stacked endlessly in pockets and purses. Very few people preserved them carefully. Over time, scratches wherein dull surfaces became the norm. As years passed, collectors began noticing that finding a truly clean, untouched 1984 Washington quarter was harder than expected. This realization gave birth to exaggeration. Some voices began claiming that the 1984 quarter could be worth millions of dollars and had the power to change someone's fortune overnight. The truth is far less dramatic, but far more instructive. There is no standard 1984 Washington quarter that is worth millions simply because of its date. No circulated example, no average uncirculated coin, and no forgotten pocket change holds that kind of value. However, value in coin collecting is not binary. It is not just worthless or priceless. Condition sits at the center of everything. A worn 1984 quarter is worth face value, but a coin that somehow avoided circulation entirely, one that still shows sharp details, strong luster, and untouched surfaces, becomes something collectors actively seek. These coins are scarce not because few were made, but because few survive in top condition. This scarcity creates real demand, not fantasy demand. Collectors assembling high-grade Washington quarter sets often struggle with certain modern years, including 1984, because pristine examples are uncommon. That difficulty can raise prices significantly within realistic boundaries. Even so, the highest legitimate values are measured in hundreds or thousands, not millions. Much confusion also comes from misunderstandings about mint errors. Real mint errors exist, but they are specific, rare, and unmistakable. Most marks people believe are errors are simply damage from circulation or mishandling. A genuine error from 1984 can increase a coin's value, sometimes dramatically, but it does not automatically unlock unimaginable wealth. The coin world rewards documented rarity, not hopeful interpretation. The emotional appeal of overnight wealth is powerful. A single coin changing a life feels like fate, like destiny choosing someone at random. That emotional hook spreads faster than facts, especially online. But professional collectors operate in a different world. They rely on grading, authentication, and market history, not viral promises. Historically, the 1984 Washington quarter represents continuity rather than disruption. It shows a stable minting system producing reliable money for everyday life. There are no experimental metals, no secret releases, and no sudden design changes. Its importance lies in how predictably ordinary it was, and how time later transformed that ordinariness into a quiet challenge for collectors. Grading plays a decisive role here. Without professional grading, claims have no weight. If a 1984 quarter truly possessed the power to create billionaires overnight, it would already be recorded, certified, and famous within the numismatic world. The absence of such record speaks louder than any rumor ever could. Ironically, Belief in myths often destroys real value. People clean, polish, or alter coins hoping to make them special, not realizing they're removing the very originality collectors prize most. A naturally preserved 1984 quarter, even with slight age toning, will always outperform one that has been artificially improved. The real lesson of the 1984 Washington quarter is subtle but powerful. It teaches that rarity is not always planned, that value can emerge years later through survival rather than intention. It also teaches that patience, knowledge, and restraint matter more than excitement and urgency. For serious collectors, the 1984 quarter is a test of discipline. Finding one in exceptional condition requires time, careful searching, and sometimes luck. That effort gives a coin respect within collecting circles. But respect does not mean fantasy prices. It means earned value rooted in reality. In the end, the 1984 Washington quarter does not hold unimaginable wealth capable of turning someone into a billionaire overnight. What it holds instead is something more lasting. It holds a lesson about money, myths, and how easily stories can grow larger than truth. And for those willing to learn, that lesson is worth far more than any exaggerated promise ever could be.